This is the Solar Smart podcast from solarsmart.ie with your host, Morgan Pierce.
Hello, and welcome to the Solar Smart podcast, looking at solar energy from a business point of view, where you'll find out how it helps the planet, reduces costs, and could even turn your roof into a profit center. Today, we're joined by David Mullins from AgriData. David's team handles the inspections and sustainability standards for Irish farms through Board BIA. He's here to talk about how solar fits into the modern farm and what it takes to stay compliant while going green. Dave, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Morgan. Thanks for having me.
So before we start talking about the nitty-gritty of solar, why don't we talk a little bit about AgriData and your business and what you do and why you do it?
So we're AgriData Limited. We're contracted to a state organisation, Board BIA actually, to provide on-farm inspections for sustainability surveys, on-farm inspections, anything to do with the Board BIA Sustainable Assurance Scheme. So we're heavily involved in the sustainability area. We have a team of 77 inspectors out on the ground. And so we inspect pretty much farms, pig producers, poultry producers, everybody around the country, meat plants even. And it's with a very clear focus on sustainability. So our entire gig is sustainability.
And what is your definition of sustainability, if I can ask?
Sustainability, well, look, it's like anything. In our case, it's can we produce foods on a long-term basis that doesn't destroy the planet in a sustainable fashion, provide good food, sustainably produced, properly sourced, and verified.
That's really important. So your inspectors travel around Ireland and complete these inspections, and then...
We visit most farms every 18 months or so. We run through a checklist. Look, I get it. We're kind of as welcome as a plague on a farm because nobody wants an inspector. You know, that's fair enough. But the job is really important because what we do, Ireland has signed up to very, very fairly binding climate change goals, one of which is a reduction in agricultural production by, greenhouse gas emissions by about 20-30% by 2030. So to even get there, the knee-jerk reaction is, let's just reduce the cattle and, reduce cattle numbers, and straight away you're going to get a reduction. But nobody's measured anything, and that's kind of not the way to do it. We have to provide a way for farmers to improve their greenhouse gas emissions, verify that it's actually happening, and in the long term, then just, provide space for the existing agriculture that exists there. And not take the knee-jerk reaction. It's very easy to go and say, just let's reduce it by 25%, let's get rid of 25% of our animals. But that's not the way to do it.
Right.
There is a better way, based in science.
What are some of the actions that farmers can take to actually improve the sustainability without reducing the numbers of herds?
We're quite sustainable in Ireland anyway. I mean, to be fair about it, there are areas we can improve. Everything can be improved. But I mean, the first thing you do is you measure what you're doing right now. We're doing that. Board BIA conducts about 40,000 sustainability surveys every year. And they measure things like, when you house your animals, when you turn them out, how much fertilizer you're using, what's your energy use, what's your water use, where do you get your water from? Are you using any sort of less, as in different types of slurry spreading? Are you respecting waterways? So there's a whole raft of information that we gather to try and put a figure on what Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions are per kilo of beef and litre of milk.
Wow.
And we're actually quite decent in Ireland. We've got a very good story to tell, if I'm honest about it. It's quite a good story to tell. We are one of the few countries in Europe that isn't under water stress, for example. And by that I mean that 60% of an animal's water needs come from the sky and rain falling on us. Now, we all give out about the weather in Ireland, but the fact of the matter is that it's of benefit. We grow grass really well here. We've got long days. We grow grass really well. It's our huge green resource. Animals feed on grass. We beat European targets by May every year in terms of, grass-fed dairy or beef. The rule is, I think, it's 6 hours a day, 105 days of the year, but we've that done by May, So Ireland is a very, very good country in that respect, in terms of what it is, when you hear people talking about greenhouse gas emissions from animals, especially cattle and dairy cattle, they sometimes don't compare our production method, versus somebody else's, like in the States, for example, and it's predominantly a high input system based on grain. Ireland, we don't use grain at all. We use a bit, but nothing. And 99% of what animals get here is grass-fed. So different greenhouse gas profile.
I can completely understand now why the information that you gather is so important, because we produce a lot of export beef and butter and milk for export, and it's a really important part of our GDP.
We're Europe's largest beef exporter. We're the world's fourth largest beef exporter. Up until recently, 12% of every can of baby food produced worldwide was produced out of Ireland here.
Wow.
I mean, this is an amazing country.
I totally
is an amazing
agree.
country.
Totally agree. And now I understand why, simply reducing herd numbers is not the answer, because simply reducing herd numbers would actually hurt us economically significantly, whereas finding ways to be more sustainable.
You hurt yourself at the expense of something even more important, which is, if we were all to turn vegan in the morning and just buy soya, you have to question where the soya comes from. One of the biggest producers of soya in the world is Cargill. Where do they produce it? They produce it in the Amazonian rainforest. Is that sustainable or more sustainable than what we're doing? I don't think so.
That's so interesting to me. And when was your first foray into solar energy, into looking at solar and thinking about solar? Because your first solar system came from a different provider and you ended up with us eventually. So I'm really interested in that journey.
So basically what happened with us was we were driving EVs for a long time. I mean, not fully, but the city of Nice in 2014 put in 600 Renault Zoe EVs. And they put charging stations all around the city, and you could rent them by the hour. And it was a great idea, because basically what you could do for a tenner, you could go out at night, take your little EV out, go to wherever you were going and hand it back. And nobody was there. You just put a card up to the car and off you went. A bit like Go-Car. It was really good because your parking was free. You didn't have to go and fill it up afterwards. And now they were first generation Renault Zoes, so they were fairly poor in terms of range. They had a 100k range. But what happened was I'd come home and I'd get into my nice Mercedes in the airport, and you turn the key and you kind of go, gosh, this thing is a tractor. And that whole thing didn't sound right. So I got a hybrid in 2017 or 18. It proved to be the worst thing I ever bought. But anyway, never mind. I ended up trading that thing in because it actually broke my heart in terms of giving grief. And I ended up getting a Tesla in 2017, a Tesla Model S. And that changes your perception, because what it does straight away is you say, oh gosh, this was a game-changing thing for my head, because like it or lump it, the EVs are different. They're quiet, they're efficient, they do everything. And suddenly your energy becomes kind of I had free supercharging with the Tesla, so, but 88% of my charging was done at home, even with free charging on the motorway. So fair enough. So then we looked into solar to see would it help. And we'd already transitioned the entire offices here over to air source heat pumps. We'd gotten rid of all of our oil, because I felt that if we are going to be out there talking about sustainability, we'd better walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So that's what we did. We transitioned the company here, and I set a goal back in 2018 to be carbon neutral by 2025. And we're actually nearly there. Bar a small little bit. We'll never get 100% there, but we're very close. So we put in the first solar system. I really didn't know what it was going to be like. It was a little 6 kilowatt system, ground-based, out the back of the offices. But what that system proved was that in 1 year, it did 1/3 of our entire energy needs, even with an EV pulling out of it, which was quite incredible for a small system like that. So then we went looking and we said, where could we go? And we checked out a whole lot of different people and some small issues with the original system. And I ended up talking to Richard Godsill, who came out to us and got on really well, actually. And he'd done systems for friends of ours, or he'd been involved in them. That's how I met Morgan. So here we are with the 21 kilowatt system and 30 kilowatt battery, and it's a monster.
Yeah. But doing its job and probably spilling to the grid now, since the small 6 kilowatt system.
I checked the figures yesterday, and last year our system generated, so I think it was €6,780 in terms of was what it was. Now, our system cost about, I'll double check, but I think it's about 4.9 to 5.5 years return on investment,
That's what it sounds like, because you're saying in about 6,000 savings last year. And if I remember correctly, the system that we installed was about 40 kilowatts.
Figure here exactly. So €6,470 what its revenue was last year in terms of either electricity produced or not taken from the grid or put back into the grid, because I put in all the figures in it. A system that cost 24,000 plus VAT and I got the VAT back on it, that's a very simple equation.
You availed of the NDMG, the non-domestic microgeneration grant,
yes, we did. Yeah.
For the business as well, which would have paid for about 25.
Yeah.
They target that grant model, if you will, to cover about 25% of the cost of a system. Not necessarily with batteries, but yeah.
Thing about it is like it fits exactly with the model, because like if we're a country that can grow grass really well, we can produce electricity really well. That is the fact. We've got low temperatures with long days, a huge season there that runs. I mean, the only time that solar isn't wonderful is probably December, January. Jeepers, this Christmas has been brilliant.
Yeah, except for November was the wettest month on record.
Yeah, November was awful, but sure, look, you win some, you lose some.
I think when we go out and we talk to prospects about what solar can do, we always stress that it's really a February to November kind of a window where you have. And then, of course, we also stress that solar panels work better, produce more electricity at 25 degrees centigrade or less.
Yeah, it's like everything. We were in a very decent climate here in terms of that. Now, look, I have a wind turbine out the back, so, and it is not at the races at all. It is troublesome. It is a 6 kilowatt wind turbine. I couldn't have picked a worse place in the world to put it. It's sitting in the middle of a forest, so there's no clean air. So, yeah, it's not the wind turbine's fault. It's the location. But really, at the end of the day, they do not compare with small wind turbines. Don't compare with solar at all.
I think it's difficult when you have anything that has moving parts. And I think one of the brilliant things about a solar system is that it's fixed. It's a fixed asset on a dwelling and it doesn't move at all. So the maintenance is almost...
just sits there doing its thing, and, you kind of go check into the apps every so often and you go, oh, wow, look at what it's done today.
Well, you being a data guy, I suspect you might check into the apps a little bit more often than most.
I do, yeah.
When you first looked at solar, how did you approach thinking about the return on investment? What was some of the criteria that you considered in terms of thinking about going solar?
At the time, it was 2020 actually, and I ordered it, I think, in January of 2020, and then we had COVID in February, and it got delivered, I think, in March or April or maybe even May of 2020. So, we hadn't quite hit the energy crisis or anything at that stage. And so it was a bit of a leap of faith. I did it because I felt it was the right thing to do. I felt it wouldn't do any harm. The money wasn't huge. It wasn't completely outrageous in terms of what it cost. But I was so surprised when it actually went in as to what it was actually capable of doing. I mean, that was the eye-opener for me, was the research beforehand said, well, it'll probably do this, but you don't know until you know. You really don't. You kind of have to put it in and then see what it actually does. So, yeah, I'd done research and I had done my figures. I wasn't sure. You can listen to all the hype in the world and you still don't know.
Well, and those were early days, so it wasn't like now where you drive around and you see solar systems everywhere and everybody knows someone who has now experience with solar. We're talking 5 years ago, very early adopter.
Oh, very early adopters. I mean, sure, look, people used to look at you with an EV and go, oh, God, you've two heads. What are you driving that thing for,
So you put your data hat on and you looked at the data and you looked at the ROI and you thought, I'm going to give this a shot, but you started small.
Yeah.
And then you decided a few years later, I'm actually going to go bigger because now I completely understand this. The technology's come on a little bit.
Well,
did you start out with batteries?
Oh, yeah, we did. No, we always had a battery because I always figured it was pointless not having a battery.
Okay.
And I did the battery for two reasons. One was we had night rate electricity, and I figured, we'll time shift this. We'll use time of use in winter. We'll shift our night race electricity into daytime use in the offices. That's a real win that people kind of forget about as well, that, your battery is key to unlocking a lot of what your solar will do for you. A lot of people, if they're away for the day, out working, the solar is doing its thing, charging up the battery. But then, in the middle of winter, when that's not the case, there's nothing wrong with charging it off-peak electricity, because then you're using electricity that would otherwise go to waste, and you use it at times when the country needs it most.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So you're loading up your batteries at night and using that electricity.
In winter,
Which is essentially when nobody else is using electricity. You're loading up at night on inexpensive rate electricity and then supplementing whatever the solar is producing the following day and not pulling down from the grid.
That's across the board with pretty much every system nowadays. We do it with your system now. In the middle of winter, I don't do it in summer because, from about February onwards, I'll switch that back to normal charging profiles.
Once we start getting really light mornings, most of the time your battery's filled up in the morning before you even get out of bed, because the sun comes up so early, starting in, by late March, early April. We're already starting to see batteries that are filled up from solar from the morning already. So,
just a few days before Paddy's Day onwards until kind of late October, you're sort of in a solar win. That's a long time.
It's a really long time. And we have, as you said, we're great at growing grass. I love that analogy because it's exactly the same. We have really, really, really long days, which is why solar is so productive in the summertime. It's not just the normal sort of 12-hour window. We've got a full 16, 17-hour window for solar production, which is incredible.
May, June, July, actually, of this year, we ran our EVs pretty much for nothing. We ran them off the solar system. Because every time the sun was shining, it was a good year for solar, actually. Every time the sun was shining, we actually plugged in the EVs to charge them up. I ran an ID Buzz for nearly 6 weeks for nothing. That's where we were with it.
ID Buzz, that's my aspirational vehicle. I have an ID5 and I love it.
They're the nicest thing you'll ever drive.
I really love the Buzz. It's so cute.
The Buzz is it is Buzz by name and Buzz by nature. You can't help drive that and not have a smile on your face.
That's the next one. What stage in your journey did you decide to put solar on your home? Was that before? Was that after?
That was after. We did the solar out the back on the offices, and then we decided we were getting the solar system in. We were doing the upgrade with you guys. And we asked, could you do something on the house? No, we didn't get a grant for the house because we put a wall-mounted system. It's a bit silly in a way, in that the wall-mounted system performs exceptionally well in winter. I mean, I can't believe how good that wall-mounted system is in winter, because the sun comes straight in at it, hits it at 90 degrees, and it was doing as well as the big system. It's only a 6 kilowatt system, but it was doing every bit as well as the main system in the offices here.
Because of the angle.
Because of the angle. Now, it does go down a bit in summer, but good Lord, who cares? It's not summer, You've got loads of sun anyway, so you're not losing much.
Right.
So what you lose in summer, you gain in multiples in winter, I would think.
So just for the benefit of listeners, the system that we installed on Dave's home is actually at a 90-degree angle against a flat wall. It's a rock wall, right?
It's an old stone kitchen garden, yeah. So
Yeah.
And it's
so
brilliant
completely
system.
different than a roof mounted, which would be tilted at, somewhere between 25 and 40 degrees, depending on the roof angle.
Yeah, and you don't get a grant for a wall-mounted system, unless it's angled. Again, I kind of guess where people were coming from. Maximize your solar gain, fair enough. But you maximize it at a time when you've got solar maximum anyway.
Right.
And you kind of minimize it at the time you really need it, which is the middle of winter. That was my issue on it after having the one out the back and realizing what it did. I didn't have any issues with putting it on the wall and losing the grant. I figured it would work better, and it did,
right.
And it does.
Right, and you were right.
Yeah.
And can I ask, did you see kind of behavioral changes? You're sort of an anomaly because you're already very sustainably kind of angled, if you will, like your business is about sustainability and all of your data, your aspects of how you look at the farming industry across Ireland, all of that is very data-driven. So outside of kind of what you already knew about sustainability, did you notice any different kind of behaviors that came from installing solar either on the business or at home?
Well, to be honest, the biggest driver of a shift in thinking is an EV. Believe it or not, I keep talking about this, but the EV changes your head. You go from a point where you're burning fossil fuel, throwing it out the exhaust pipe, and, filling up with diesel or petrol or whatever it might be. And it actually changes the way you look at things if you drive an EV. And so the whole notion of burning something that we dug out of the soil that was buried there and should have stayed buried there becomes kind of offensive to your thinking. Like, we have to understand, I'm 66 this year. I was born in January 1960. We had 4.1 billion people on the planet in that year. We now have 8 point something billion people. We have to produce more from less, more sustainably. We cannot continue on the path that we're on without change. If we don't change, we are going to die. Mother Nature will continue. Mother Nature won't care. She will continue on. She'll figure out what to do. She might drown us, cover us in tsunamis, winds, or whatever. Mother Nature will continue on. This earth has been here for 5 billion years and longer, and it'll be here for 5 billion years long after we're dead and gone. So it's the cost to us. It's not the cost to Mother Nature that we have to be respectful of. So we're individually responsible for what we've done to the planet. We're individually responsible for what we continue to do to the planet and what we should do. I can't fix climate myself. Ireland can't fix it on its own. But as a population, we have a responsibility to try our best to do things that make it sane.
Yeah.
Make change that matters. So it does change your head.
I think the Irish government is actually doing a lot towards making all of that possible. I completely agree with you. I got an EV. I had a diesel, drove it until it died, and I was hell-bent on getting an EV. And I had the same kind of concerns. I drive a lot. I drive all over the country, talking to customers and visiting different businesses and talking about solar. And I was really kind of worried about the whole range thing. But I was not going to buy another diesel car, another petrol car. It just was not in the cards. And I was completely surprised the first time I drove to Cork. My first noticeable kind of side effect, if you will, was that when I got out of my car, my hips weren't tired. I wasn't achy. If I'd driven my BMW to Cork for 2.5 hours, I'd get out of the car and I'd be like, oh, I got to stretch. I got to, walk it out a little bit. I got out of the ID5 and I was like, good, my body doesn't hurt at all. And after a while, I realized that it was because there's no combustion engine vibration. It's the smoothest ride. And it completely changed how I felt about driving long distances. And I just thought, what a side effect is to actually feel physically better when you get out of the car. And that was kind of my first kind of revelation, if you will. But and I was actually going to where the government has been quite good on incentivizing sort of a push for the whole country. I mean, the solar initiatives are amazing. You're seeing solar everywhere. You've got the SRES program now for small businesses to be able to generate solar and pump it out to the grid and create a passive income. You've got the non-domestic microgeneration grant. You've got the PV grant. You've got the EV grant. Like, they've done, I think, an amazing job of helping Ireland begin to understand what the benefits are and have the financial incentives to help people make that decision. Now, I live in an area where EVs are hugely prevalent. They're everywhere. And everybody who drives an EV, the natural inclination is to then go, oh gosh, it's costing me almost nothing to fill up my car from the grid. Imagine what would happen if I were filling up my car from my solar system that's on my roof.
Yeah.
It's become a complete no-brainer.
It's actually zero-sum equation, really. You get one, you're going to get the other, pretty much. You probably are. It's as simple as that. They make total sense with each other. I can't really fault either of them. Just on the energy use and the way it affects your thinking, it certainly does, because you will change your behavior. You will watch when the sun is out. You will put your dishwasher on or your dryer on when the sun is shining, because you've got capacity there in your house. And it's great to see. I mean, friends of mine, anecdotally, I have 3 friends with solar from you guys. And one of them has, at this stage, he has 1,270, I spoke to him yesterday, he's 1,270 euro credit for the last 2 years. He hasn't had a bill. He has not had one bill. The other guy, he's got 2 daughters, so he's probably in the order, I think he said to me, about 400 euro credit. But they were having showers like there was no tomorrow and all the rest of it. So like, the washing machine was on constantly. So I guess
maybe there's good behavior and bad behavior that comes with the transition to solar. More showers.
Yeah. But look, it's been a very eye-opening experience. I can't fault it.
So
the other side of it is, I will say one thing. You see the cancellation of the huge offshore wind farm out the west of Ireland there, and Ireland has a major problem when it comes to critical infrastructure getting built and being done. Solar on rooftops in domestic situations is the huge win for this country. You get what you want in terms of energy generation and energy independence without having to go through that whole planning mess and palaver out there. Now, there's a flip side. You absolutely must invest in the grid. We should. Like back in the 1930s, Ireland embarked on the single largest infrastructure project in Europe, bar none, which was Ardnacrusha. Ardnacrusha at the moment, it isn't the size of a small solar farm at this stage in terms of what it does, what it contributes is nothing. But at the time, it was we were a country, brand spanking new out of the box. We hadn't a bob to our name. We were broke. And yet we embarked on this thing as a nation, a young nation, deciding on our future. I think we need to take a leaf out of their book and do something similar and say, right, let's just go for this. Let's build out, get our electricity supply on board, build the grid that copes with distributed power generation, put in the battery packs that store wasted renewable energy. Let's get ourselves away from relying on Vladimir Putin and co. Because every time people give out about wind turbine, but I look at those and I go, turn baby turn, rather than Donald Trump's burn baby burn. Just every time one of those turns, it's a litre of oil we haven't had to buy from somebody who doesn't like us or hasn't our best interests at heart.
Exactly.
We bring it home.
Exactly. And rooftop is so easy because no planning permission. You just throw it up. It works. It takes a matter of days. It's just the simplest solution. And when you put it on the rooftop, whether it's a business or farm or a residential dwelling, you're creating the electricity at the point of consumption. So you don't need the same transmission. Now, of course, we need to improve our infrastructure. I think everybody agrees on that because we want to become a exporter, right, of energy eventually, which is what we're well capable of doing. But for the homeowner, just making your own electricity on your roof and bringing it into your fuse board means that
you've control.
Kilowatt hours worth of electricity that are being made on the west coast of Ireland don't have to travel across all these transmission lines to get to your rooftop. You're making your own electricity on your own roof. You're bringing it into your fuse board, and what you're not using, you're spilling to the grid. And all of that is a win, 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 win. And it's a no-brainer. People say, well, how long does it take to install a solar system, domestic solar system? It's a day. It's a day. If you called me today and said, I want a solar system on my roof tomorrow, I could put it up there. Now we're completely booked calendar-wise, but if you wanted it, I could make it happen. And you can't do that with any other kind of renewable project. So what would your advice to me as a solar energy business owner be in terms of how we can get more people interested and excited about solar? And if there are people that are on the fence about thinking about whether or not solar is the right decision for them, what would be your advice as somebody who understands their business and also understands solar and sustainability to the level that you do?
Well, I mean, firstly, is it, look at your energy usage. There are some businesses where their energy use is so high that there isn't a solar system in the world to run it. You want to have a mega farm outside the place running it. So you look at your energy use. But even then, you've got rooftops. Sure, you could put some dent in the costs of your electricity, even to run the offices or something else, if you took that out of the equation. So every time you put something on a roof, it's a win. Do your research, look at your energy mix, look at your energy profile, and talk to experts. I would say it's like every industry, though. There are cowboys out there doing this a lot. I'm not going to mention any names, but you do need to talk to people who know what they're talking about. You need to talk to people who have a good track record, who have decent installers, know what they're doing when they come out, it isn't about just sticking up a bunch of panels and plugging them in and hoping to God it works. There's a bit more to it than that. Our first solar system, for example, wasn't optimized. Nobody told me that, hey, you need to optimize your panels. What does that mean? That means our first system had 20 panels. There were 2 strings of 10. And if any one of those strings got shaded for whatever reason, that whole string came down because it wasn't optimized. You know, optimizing doesn't cost a lot, but it's absolutely critical to your solar system working.
Right.
You know, simple stuff. Talk to people who know and who will give you the best advice. And it's not about price, actually. Do it right. Do it once, is what I would say to you.
Okay, last question. What is the biggest myth about solar that you would love to bust if
Listen,
if your job was to sell solar all day long?
We're not in Spain. We don't have sunshine. It works so well in Ireland. Ireland has got the biggest myth is that it doesn't work in Ireland because we don't have sun. That's absolute rubbish. It is not even remotely to get. We actually do as nearly as good as Spain, to be quite honest with you, because we've got long days and cool temperatures. Do you know?
I think that is the biggest myth, actually. Does solar really work in Ireland? I remember when I was first thinking about starting a solar energy company, and at the time I was working in Switzerland, and I had a conversation with somebody in Switzerland, and they were saying, Ireland? Solar? Are you crazy?
Counterintuitive it is.
What are you thinking? And it was counterintuitive, but once I figured out that solar production is actually higher at lower temperatures, I realized how impactful as a country we could become in terms of producing solar energy for Southern Europe when the temperatures are so high and their solar panels aren't producing at the same rate. Like, you can wallpaper Southern Europe, but it's not going to really help in July, August, and September when it's 40 degrees because the production is quite minimal at that temperature.
Yeah, you know.
And so we're in this beautiful place.
You know, solar panels are black and they get really hot, you know. It doesn't take much to heat them up.
Yeah.
Our first take of solar, believe it or not, was in 2007. We put in a wood gasifier. We have an old house. It's a big old Georgian crumbling pile of a place. Its energy rating is probably down around X. You know, it's got drafty windows and sliding sash windows and, you know, tall roofs and thick walls and no insulation whatsoever. So, you know, when I was growing up, we had ice on the inside of the windows in our bedrooms. We had one warm room that was heated by timber. But we put in a wood gasifier back in 2007, which is a kind of a different way of doing it. We have our local forester. So that was working really well. But one of the things we did do is we put in an evacuated tube solar system for the water. That was a real eye-opener, actually, that thing, because it actually meant that never, not once since 2007, have we put any energy into heating or water. We've had 24/7 hot water since 2007.
18 years.
18 years. And is that not a payback? Good Lord.
And I think we'll probably be having the same conversation 18 years from now, but probably won't be you and me. Hopefully we'll be out of this game by then, but about the payback that the solar systems that we're installing today are actually bringing to people and bringing to the market. So it's a great place
Morgan,
to be.
I have to say, I have to congratulate you as a company, because you came in, you did a job here that was really brilliant. It worked really well. Your guys, Mick and Darren, and the guys that came out to do it, super guys, they know what they're at. You know, there was no question left unanswered immediately, which is great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we really pride ourselves on our Trustpilot reviews. I love how sustainability is like part of your core. Part of my core as an individual, as a person, is to take care of people, to look after our employees. And I think that's one of the primary differences between SolarSmart and some of the other providers that are out there is our teams are the core of our company. They only work Monday to Thursday because they work really, really hard. They travel a lot. They drive a lot. So we don't ask them to work on Fridays and Saturdays. We employ them all. We've recently put them all on the not auto enrollment, but a company pension. Like, we really do our best to look after them, to retain them, to train them, to upskill them. And I think it really shows. It's in our nature to just make sure that we're looking after our people, and I think that translates into our people walking into people's homes and businesses and looking after them the same way that we look after them. So
yeah, well, your people are everything.
It pays. It costs a lot of money to run a business like that, but it pays off because we lose very, very, very few resources. And in this industry where resources are really hard to come by and it's a new skill shortage, if you will, industry, it pays to do the right thing. So
good people are hard got, and you better mind them, because we've a super, super team ourselves. And, without them, there is no AgriData. I sent them a Christmas message about that. Without you guys, there is none of us. They're the people that make you smile and get you through a hard day. And, your team around you is brilliant,
Yeah, well, gratitude goes a long way, I think, and if you show it. So I think we both have similar cultures, I think, in that way. It's been really interesting chatting to you today. I actually didn't understand everything that you did. I called Richard and got a quick synopsis, but I hadn't understood how seeped in sustainability you are as an individual and your company is. And so I think coming from someone who understands so much about measuring sustainability and understanding how impactful it can be, the fact that you've had a number of different solar journeys and that you are a partner of ours, I guess I feel like it could be long-term in terms of helping us find other opportunities. I'm really appreciative and I'm really grateful that you took the time today. It's been very interesting.
Well, thanks, Morgan.
Thank you for listening to our show today. If you would like to find out more about what we covered in this episode, you'll find notes, links and more in the description area of this podcast. Do remember to press follow so you get the next episode automatically. Also, please do share with a friend who you think would find it interesting. Just tell them to search for Solar Smart on their podcast app. Our podcast today was produced by dustpod.io and brought to you by solarsmart.ie. Until next time, thank you for listening.